sedimentary strata, you're beginning to see a problem here. You can't date fossils, and you can't date the kind of strata that fossils are typically found in, sedimentary strata. The reason is sedimentary strata, and I don't think this is going to be a huge shock to you, is made of sediment. And sediment can be anything from gravel-like particles down to face powder-like particles that have settled out of water. And where did these particles come from? Well, the whole drainage bed to this area. And so this particle here, face powder-sized particle, might have come from Farmer Brown's West 40. And this one over here in the Mississippi River Delta might have come from Itasca State Park. It has two widely different sources. So there's no way to date an assemblage of particles that make up sedimentary rock. What is dated is igneous rock. And you might wonder, well, how does dating igneous rock help you? Well, it's the only thing that's datable by like uranium, thorium, lead, potassium, argon, etc. And what they do is they date lava fills that have flown in between the layers of the rock. We call them sills. And they think they have the date for the sill, and they interpret that for the fossil. Also, a lot of fossils are dated not by any radiometric dating, but just by general assumptions of the age of the strata based on other fossils found in it. So it gets to be pretty circular. You know how old the fossil is, therefore you know how old the strata is. You know how old the strata is, you know how old the fossil. And that's called an index fossil. That's basically what they were doing with Basil Cook's pig teeth. He knows how old the pig tooth is, therefore he knows how old the strata is. He knows how old the strata is because he knows how old the pig tooth is. Radiometric dating is, I think the top is beginning to just fall off from it. I've got a CD here that I actually got from a radio host here in the Denver area. What's his name yet? Don? Here it is. Enyart, yeah, Bob Enyart. And he had challenged the folks that found that dinosaur that had the marrow, the soft marrow in it, Mary Schweitzer and Jack Horner. They're in the Colorado area here. And Bob Enyart had worked up a total of $20,000 to give to Schweitzer and Horner to use in any way they see fit at their museum or in their research if they would just allow either the marrow or a piece of the bone to be carbon dated. And he basically, Horner told him, you couldn't come up with enough money for me to let you date it. And you know why, because he knows it's perfectly datable with radiocarbon. Unquestionably datable with radiocarbon. And they're willing to give all the money. I mean, would 40,000, would 80,000, I mean, what would it take? So far he's hanging tough, he's not going to let you date his fossil. And he finally conceded that the reason he wouldn't is you'd use it against him. He knows it's datable with radiocarbon. And radiocarbon should date things, what? At the most? 50 with the newest techniques, possibly up to 100,000. But assuming there was a specimen that old. And these specimens are supposed to be like 70 million years old. It should be as cold could be for radiocarbon, carbon-14. And he knows that there's going to be plenty of carbon-14 in there. It's going to be well within the limits of error of the technique. And he knows that if he allows it to be tested, he's got a lot of explaining to do. So we got any believers in radiometric dating out there, let me just get you to do one thing. Get this lab to allow their specimen to be dated by radiocarbon. I think people need to have the courage of their convictions, don't you think? Yeah.
Related to the last question, how, geographically speaking, how far away was the Lucy specimen found from those?
Oh, I thought I mentioned in the lecture. It's about 900 miles away. Okay. So it's Tanzania and Ethiopia.
So we would have had to be a different Africa.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been the Lucy specimen. It would have been another specimen of that species, according to Johansen. In fact, when you find a fossil, especially when you find one as remarkably complete on a relative scale as Lucy is, as the discoverer of this fossil, and as the one that gives it its name, you know, A. afarensis, you then have the right to declare your specimen to be what they call a type specimen, against which all other specimens that claim to be the same species have to be measured against the type specimen. Guess what? Johansen did not declare Lucy to be the type specimen. He found a piece of jawbone near the footprints of Leakey and declared that to be the type specimen. I believe just to get an association of Lucy with the with the footprint site, because it would have been obvious to declare Lucy as the type specimen for A. afarensis. So the whole field is, whatever it is, it's not science.